If you'd like to call in and ask a question about tonight's subject, which is Scientology. When we left on the break, we were talking about fair game, and I think Colin would like to talk about his fair game experience as it relates to Scientology.
I sure would. Whenever we went out and did the protest on June 23rd and 24th, I was the organizer of the protest. We stayed the night there in McAllister, and I came back home. I arrived home at 11:30 in the p.m. Sunday night. When I walked into my house, I realized that when I put my key into my deadbolt, it wasn't locked, and that it had my alarm bells going off. So I took some precautions. Went into the house and noticed that my dogs were fine and everything, but I noticed two interior open doors that are never left open. I always close them. That's not a big deal. When I walked into my bedroom, I had a very nice surprise for me. They had pulled out my .357 Magnum, dumped all the bullets on my bed, and left the cylinder open and just laid it all out on my bed for me to walk home to send a message to me. We can get to you. Did it scare me? No. Pissed me off. So I went public with it, called the police, made a police report. They were at my house again a couple nights after that, and we called the cops again. They have harassed my brother over at his house, which doesn't live too far from me. Another person was receiving, a person that was at the protest with me started to receive harassing phone calls, he lives in a different house. So I have a statement that I'd like to make, and it's an opinionated statement. In my humble opinion, the cult of Scientology is, in my humble opinion, a terrorist organization, in my humble opinion. That's all I can say. That they come after critics so hard to get you to shut up. And when you don't shut up, sometimes they don't know what to do with you. And David, Love, and I, we just don't shut up. And there's a lot of us out there that don't shut up. The harder that they come at us, the more we get pissed off. And we're going to take action. We're going to protect ourselves. We're going to talk to the police, the FBI, the OSBI, the Attorney General's office. We're going to report. I'm going to report it to everybody.
Well, and I have to say that what Colin is reporting is not unique to him. Looking around the internet, there's a BBC documentary that was done about one reporter's experience with investigating the Church of Scientology, and they about drove him insane. He talked to some members that left the Church of Scientology. They still believed in Scientology, but apparently, according to them, were upset about, these are high-level members, upset about how the church was operating. And the reporter asked him, this was some, few years after his first investigation, he said, were you guys spying on me? And they said, yeah, we were spying on you. And they were playing mind games with him and all sorts of things. And so this is something that, like I said, is not unique to Colin or David. This is widely reported, and it reminds you of the mafia.
Worse than the mafia. Completely worse than the mafia, especially on the psychological side of things, the psychological harassing.
The first time we covered this issue, Colin, and I started researching, I was honestly a little bit afraid. I was very careful about what I said, and so it's a real fear.
Yeah, and to show how deep they go, in the late 70s, a lot of people don't know this. There's something out there called Operation Snow White. And in the late 70s, the largest infiltration of the United States government was done by Scientology.
Not communists?
Not communists. Scientology. By the Church of Scientology.
Wow.
Now, I'm going to guess there's some people who are sitting at home thinking, oh, that's a bunch of crap. Google it. Google it. Type in Operation Snow White, right?
That's right, Operation Snow White.
Google it. I hadn't heard about it, quite honestly, until today. And I read it, and there was guilty pleas and
a lot of people went to jail.
Court documents.
Hubbard's wife was involved with that as well. And so it is quite interesting.
Up to 5,000 covert agents.
5,000 covert agents. That's right.
Yep.
Amazing.
Wow.
And even there was a journalist who was a sweetheart, Paulette Cooper, who I met a week ago down in the United States. They had an operation against her called Operation Freakout, and it was a Church of Scientology covert plan to have the author imprisoned or committed to a mental institution. And the plan was in 1976, and it was initiated by the church. And there was lawsuits and harassment. The FBI were involved, and they found the church guilty of it. And the church also, after Operation Snow White, where several high-ranking church members went to prison, they're a criminal convicted organization in the United States and Canada, the Canadian authorities, through some documents, they did an undercover investigation for 2 years. And then 100 police officers jumped out of 3 buses in Toronto and raided the church and took cases and cases of documents away. And they were convicted federally of breach of public trust. So they're also a convicted criminal organization in Canada. They do not have religious status in Canada or charitable status in Canada. I don't think they ever will because of the criminal activity.
Yeah, and I think that's the question that we really haven't talked about is, how do they maintain their tax-deductible status? And I guess would we favor it being removed? Is this
they need
in our
to
country?
They need to be investigated and for their activities, whatever wherever they're breaking the law.
Personal actions.
We have religious freedom in the United States. It's a precious thing. The problem. Let's not take issue with their beliefs, because if you line up all the religions next to each other and you don't believe in any of them, they all look rather the same.
That is right.
To a person that is agnostic.
Right.
Okay. So whether you're a Christian or a Scientologist or what have you, there are certain things that are illegal. That's what you go after. They can believe whatever they want to believe. They cannot lie to people that are vulnerable, that are coming to them for a service that they are advertising. And being misleading about when they're really trying to indoctrinate them into the church. Yeah,
when Narconon, when the inception of Narconon, when it was created, when William Benitez and the Arizona State Penitentiary contacted L. Ron Hubbard and they pulled this thing, they diagrammed this thing together. The moment that it was created, they automatically generated leverage from a business perspective. They generated leverage that they are just by creating themselves.
The organization,
the Narconon. Because they're going after addicts. They're going after to what they deem the complete bottom feeding area of society. And that's a lot of leverage that they created at a moment's notice at the inception when Narconon became Narconon.
In a business sense.
Yeah.
Well, and I think it's interesting too. Go ahead, David.
When you've got this business set up as Narconon, you've got the Sea Org, you've got the Church of Scientology, you've got ABLE. Now, it's not just state where these funds are going back and forth. They're going to California, they're going to Florida, they're going to ABLE International. As soon as you start doing that, and as soon as you start committing fraud over state lines to coerce and manipulate and misrepresent your success rates to get people in and transfer funds over state lines, then you're entering into the FBI RICO area. And, when Narconon Arrowhead got accredited there, if you read how they got accredited, in my opinion, there should be a Senate hearing and a very deep investigation, and everybody who has done anything illegal should stand accountable to the full extent of the law.
Absolutely. Speaking of the RICO, there is a huge court case in Georgia with Narconon Georgia, Narconon International, ABLE. It's on Patrick Desmond's estate. That has gone into a full civil RICO case, and the clock is ticking on a judge's orders for a disclosure of documents. So it's a major case out there. And to add to that, there have been numerous Narconon Arrowhead execs that have been subpoenaed to that case. And you have to keep in mind, Narconon Arrowhead is the international training facility for the entire Narconon program.
Wow. Right here in Oklahoma.
Right here in the heart of Oklahoma.
Yep. We'll talk more about those players and some of the organizations when we come back. We're talking about Narconon Arrowhead and Scientology here in the state of Oklahoma and elsewhere with Colin Henderson and David Love. You're listening to Axxiom for Liberty with Kay Beach and Craig Dawkins, and we'll be back in just a moment. Back to listening to Axxiom for Liberty, and I am here in studio with Colin Henderson and my guest co-host, Craig Dawkins. We are talking about Narconon Arrowhead and Scientology. Narconon Arrowhead is a drug rehabilitation facility in Cleveland, Oklahoma, Canadian, Oklahoma. That is a front group for Scientology, and I have David Love on the line, who is well-nigh an expert on the whole sordid affair. And before we went to break, Colin, I don't have my notes in front of me. I cannot find them. I'm going to try to find out. But ABLE is an organization, ABLE,
yes,
that bought Narconon. But I'm looking at the documents, the original documents when they created this organization, ABLE. And it says in these documents, this is the contract basically, or whatever you would want to call it. And it says that ABLE was created for the purpose of getting L. Ron Hubbard Scientology technology into secular organizations. It says that clearly in its founding documents. And so you used the term ABLE before we went to break. So
ABLE is what ABLE International stands for. Please don't get it confused with ABLE, with the alcohol.
The ABLE Commission.
Yeah, the ABLE Commission.
Right.
ABLE stands for Association for a Better Living and Education International. And that is within their own documents, that is what's deemed a various sector of Scientology. And that is where they receive money coming up lines from Narconon. And if I remember right, it's around 10%. David, can you chime in on the finances?
Yeah, it's exactly 10%. And they charge that as a licensing fee to use the logos and the copyright material of Scientology. And basically, that's what it is. It's a 10% off the gross income, which is quite a bit when you figure out the millions of dollars they're bringing in every year.
And with the licensing agreement, we always have to remember who owns those patents and trademarks is the Religious Technology Center, correct?
Yeah, Scientology. That's right. Yeah.
And let me mention for listeners, if you will do a web search for Narconon and Newkirk, Oklahoma, you will, without a doubt, find an amazing cache of newspaper articles that describe the situation when Narconon decided to locate in Oklahoma, originally at Chilocco, which is in Kay County, on Indian land. The absolute mess that came about with the townspeople there, and back to the fair game and spying. There was blackmailing going on. There was spying. There was intimidation. It's really incredible. And this is all documented. I'm not going to remember the fellow's name
There was a letter that was written. If I remember right, at the time, it's what today is OSA, the Office of Special Affairs within the church, the Goon Squad that we had talked about earlier. Back in the early '90s, and late '80s, it was the Department of Special Affairs, and a guy by the name of Bruce Pyle wrote a letter that was leaked out several years ago to the organization in California. Thinking that they had a victorious victory here in Oklahoma, and were bragging about costing the Oklahoma taxpayers around $2 million during all those court cases with the state. And I'm afraid that's going to happen again. When they get shut down here in Oklahoma, they're going to come back and probably sue Oklahoma, and it might cost us taxpayers some more money, but guess what? Us taxpayers have been funding a lot of Scientology
has
stuff.
A lot of money, does it not?
Yes, it does.
It's quite a lot. It's the religion of the stars, as the BBC reporter called it. But if you look up Newkirk Herald Journal and Narconon, you will find a cache of articles from about 89 past 92, I think, that detail all of the spying and the blackmail and intimidation factors. It's really unbelievable. I'm glad that it was documented in the newspaper.
Me too.
I believe Kirstie Alley
she
spoke out, tried to protect this Narconon facility.
Sure. A lot of, and I can't really figure out the connection. Why is Hollywood so tied in seemingly to this. It just amazes me, from John Travolta. Obviously, everybody knows about Tom Cruise.
Isaac Hayes.
I mean, there's just so many. It's almost like I need a gig. So if I join Church of Scientology,